Hello, and welcome to the DoneJS contributors meeting. Today is April 28th, 2017. My name is Chase Lahar, and today we have a full hangout. Chris, you want to start us off and say hello?
Yeah. Hey, everyone, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm David.
Cool, you're next. Or not. Julian, say hello.
Hey, I'm Julian.
Hey, it's Justin. I got accepted to that conf, but I'm making Matthew do all the work.
Hey, I'm Kevin. Happy birthday to my mom. Today's birthday.
This is Matthew. Happy birthday to Kevin's mom.
Oh,
She's definitely not watching, so it doesn't matter.
Nils, want to say hello? Are you there?
Oh, hey, Neil's here. I guess my mic's not working.
Hey, it is now.
Oh.
All right, thanks guys for joining. We're gonna start off by going through the core team and having them give a quick status on what they accomplished this past week and what they plan on working on next week. Well, let's mix it up, if that's okay, Matthew, and have you go first. Go in reverse alphabetical.
Oh, we're doing statuses?
Yes.
I'm focused on streaming, improving our streaming capabilities for server-side rendering for a little while. So what this entails is that instead of what DoneJS does now, which is wait for the entire app to finish rendering and then send out the HTML to try to send it out incrementally. So we have a couple of ideas on how to do that, and I'll talk more in the future as I start to develop those ideas.
Sweet, sounds good. Kevin?
So this week I was still focused on memory leaks, so we fixed a few more memory leaks related to CAN jQuery, one directly in CAN jQuery and one if you're using CanView Live with CAN jQuery. And then I also investigated an issue with CSS minification with Steel Tools. And on Tuesday I presented at JavaScript Chicago. So next week we are going to try to get CanJS 3.6.0 up. So that's what I'll be working on.
Sweet, sounds good. Justin, been smiling over there. Or are you frozen?
it's me
Okay.
trying to figure out what I'm going to say for status because this week blew by. So this week I got accepted to that conf, which is really nice. It's in the Wisconsin Dells. So that'll be fun. Matthew and I are going to be working on a streaming, making CanJS server-side rendering streaming. We already worked on this a little bit at Hack, Illinois. Hopefully it's going to turn out amazing. Hopefully in a few more weeks we probably have like a sneak peek for people. I don't even know if Matthew, you already wrote. Maybe you're going to talk about that? I don't know. If you have anything there, no, nothing to show yet. We've got a crazy idea, but it's like it might just work. I'm doing Bitovi I'm training Bitovi employees. If anybody's out there watching on the 15th, but there's 2 spots available for every day. Just look at DoneJS Chicago, sign up. I worked on the advanced weather guide that uses event streams. That is all written up. I'm just waiting on the next release of CanJS, which should hopefully come out tonight or Monday. Next week is one of Bitovi's retreat weeks. Everybody is going to Denver at Bitovi, and everybody's pretty much just hacking on open source that week. So I will be pretty much just helping, I think, everybody next week. I'm also preparing a Can Connect training for that, and a Can Set training, I think. So I will have those and maybe give them, maybe next week I'll do like a training on either those or the advanced weather guide, like a YouTube streaming thing. So that's it for me.
Sweet, sounds great. Julian, you want to go?
Yeah, sure, but I have nothing this week. So.
That's okay. Do you have anything that you're gonna try and work on next week?
No.
Okay.
I'm really so maybe the week after the next, maybe.
Cool. Sounds good. David.
All right. So this week I worked on some testing related features and bugs. Actually, I can quickly demo that one because that's a nice one that I added. Basically, when you run your tests, you can now see your console logs if you add this flag. Basically, what it does now here is it kicks up Firefox, runs the tests, and also reports the console logs back. So it makes it a lot easier to debug what's actually happening. So you see, like, this is the test ID, and then it gives you all the console errors and console logs. And it's kind of nice because you can actually see, like, when you log an object, you get the whole, like, JSON representation back and stuff. I know people have been, I don't know why this is such a bad contrast. A lot of people said they had, like, you know, difficulties because sometimes the tests would just time out and you had no idea why. So I'm hoping that this makes it a little easier to debug the tests. There was a couple other small issues, and code coverage for ES6 was already released. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here.
No, this is really slick.
Sorry. So code coverage was released, and then there was a couple small issues that got fixed, and this is also released now. So this is documented. And this was it for this week. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Today I'm going to be departing Bitovi and take a little bit of a DoneJS break, but there's a couple of features that I want to tackle after I get back from my crazy wedding, 6 weeks of party and honeymoon. So yeah, I'm going to be taking a 6-week break, but I plan on being back after that and try and get some of those features in there that I've been wanting to do for a while.
Awesome. We'll be looking forward to when you're back from your crazy German wedding vacation extravaganza.
Yeah, I'm not in Julian's neck of the woods. I'm going to be in Nuremberg and Leipzig. So otherwise, you should have grabbed some beers, but it's still a little far, at least for German standards.
Yeah, for sure. Hope you have a good time. Okay, I'll go last. So this past week, I worked on a bunch of things leading up to deploying the new DoneJS site yesterday morning and publishing the release article. So woohoo, celebration, party time. Yeah. Thank you to not just everyone who's on the core team in here, but everyone who contributed to making this release happen. We wouldn't have been able to do it without our outside contributors as well. So I feel like everyone should do a little celebration dance, at least with their hands. No one's going to join me in celebration dance. Yeah, thank you guys. All right, and then next week I'll be, as Justin mentioned, we'll be in, all of Bitovi will be in Denver together. So I plan on working with our design team on some usability issues, specifically on CaneJS.com, but our other projects too. And then we are, I'm hoping sometime next month we have a bunch of code mods that we've been using to upgrade our projects. It's all open source. People can grab the code mods we've been using for upgrading CaneJS 2.3 apps to CaneJS 3, but we're going to package them well and document them and get them published on the CaneJS site and really publish a blog post and all that jazz. So I'm going to start helping to organize that. And then I'm giving a bunch of talks next month, so I'm going to start prepping for those next week. So that's my status. We have a few topics, so let's get right into them.
Real quick,
yeah.
Jason, I just wanted to mention I randomly was having to be, like I said, I was traveling to Australia, then to Toronto, and then Denver and Portugal, and then these guys, Joey, who's this one right here. I'm not sure if it was him who noticed it, but he's the one who emailed me. This is Signify. They use DoneJS to build. Can't really see it here. There's like a screen where you can purchase books. So they build these kind of machines, and It's DoneJS NWJS application that runs right here. I said I'm hanging them. I meant hanging out with, or hanging with the team. We don't actually hang people who use our open source tools.
That's just rude, Justin.
Yeah, just to make that clear. But these guys were awesome. It was totally my pleasure to go out, meet them, talk shop with them. I will keep trying, and I would say that like if there's anybody in Denver, the whole Bitovi team is gonna be out in Denver. I will try to keep writing where I'm headed, because if anybody out there is using our stuff, it's always fun to meet and see what people are doing. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, they apparently watch these too, which is really cool. So if they're watching,
Hi, Signify guys.
Yeah, they just saw themselves, and apparently they knew my name because when we have bugs, they curse it. So I just want to say we're going to do whatever we can to eliminate those bugs, so my name isn't being cursed anymore.
Bring your name back into good standing.
Yeah. I think this next release will do a lot. I think we fixed the whole thing.
All right, we can do
40
that.
bucks.
Cool. Yeah, let's get into topics. So, Chris, I think you posted first about a custom event registry for CanUtil DOM events. Hopefully, everyone actually read that issue already. Could you give us a brief summary and then kick off the discussion?
Yeah, sure. So the way we do things with CanUtil events right now is we have a few custom events already inserted, removed. I was recently working on a new one, and it's getting to the point where we should have a good API for this so people can plug in easily. But more importantly, also remove themselves when they're done with that custom event, so we have a good cleanup strategy. So there is an open discussion about how we should implement that, and any feedback is good. I kind of posted what I thought would be an ideal interface, but if anyone else has any other suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Just as a side thing, if I leave this Hangout that's live, can someone join? Jason?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, because as soon as I'm done here, I'll let Austin had another topic, and I'll let him jump in so he can explain that one, if I'm able to do that. So,
okay.
Which repo was your proposal in? Was it in CanUtil?
Yeah, it's in CanUtil. Yeah. It's issue 249. I'll just post it in the chat. Oh, thanks, Justin.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I like it. I like it. I was thinking, like, what would be, like, from a user's perspective, like, how would they, that's the one thing I was unsure of, like, how would they use this thing directly to, like, say, hey, I want to use this whatever event. Like, this seems like it's an API for people who are implementing custom events, but, like, what about from the user's perspective? How would they say, hey, I want to use this custom event?
Well, it is for the user. So the user would say, okay, I want to use a custom event. So they'll require the event from whatever package, because we want to break these all into packages, from whatever package, and then they would add the custom event themselves. And that's how that would work. Oh, okay. Austin's here. Cool.
What's the? I see the custom. It's the custom event registry. So what do they call? Oh, they call add custom event.
Yeah, on events,
okay.
And then events will attach that interface that's described below. To it'll basically.
It could be good to share your screen, Chris, while you're talking through this. I just that'll give anybody who's watching along a little bit more context.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, here's where the event is added. And
you
just stopped sharing your screen.
I did.
Click on my screen.
Justin's sharing his.
All right. Yeah.
Jason, click on my screen and it'll force show that.
All right.
Should it be part of the API that they can name it to, like add custom event, and I want to call it? Maybe that's not a good idea. Never mind.
Well, Yeah, I thought about that, and the way that I've written one of these packages is if you change the name, it'll still work. Like you can name it anything you want. You can modify the event name, and it will work because the add event listener function call gets the event name itself back. So there's no real reason that any package should be, it shouldn't be hard coded because you'll get the event name that is desired by listening to it.
So I have so the first thing is I would like, this is going to be weird, but I would like it if it was possible to, I would like this can events API to be a, there should be a global one, but there should also, it should be possible to create individual ones. Like this was in my,
like create a registry? Yeah, like the registry could be
registry
like
for an individual template, for instance. Like what I kind of wrote in,
like a registry could be like a class. And
what was that? Yeah, but what was the name of that presentation, Kevin?
Built to last.
Is it alphabetical in here?
No, I think it was in.
Is it in yours?
I'm not sure what. No, the template stuff wasn't in mine. I took that out.
Oh, that was the best part. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I think it was hard to understand if you weren't from CanJS background. Where did I get that from? I got it from in here, so it's definitely.
Here, I guess it was.
Oh, it's an overview, I think.
Here we go. Sorry, everybody. So I mean, the whole goal behind CanJS, or like what I'm really trying to get to, is we're trying to make it so you could, every module does what it should do without, it should load all of its modules without really, with a minimal chance for, here we go, with minimal chance that someone else mixed in behavior into your module. So what I thought would be like really cool in the future, maybe with, I don't know, this should work with any, I would hope, any view engine or component or something that we're building. It would be cool if you can, import your event and then use that at the time of your binding, which I think is possible with the API that, what an actual custom event exposes. But we'd want then this template to actually have its own event registry so that, or maybe the bindings can use that as well. But like you could, maybe if you don't mix it in, maybe that just gets mixed into the template as a whole. Otherwise, you can mix it in like on your own. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just saying like it would be good that there's like a global one, but then you can easily create additional registries. We can house those places.
Yeah, definitely. And there's nothing, I don't think there's any problem there from like the implementers of these custom events perspective. I think it would work all the same for them properly. But there are also uses too, just if you want to have different events on different document fragments as a whole. So there's whole entire use cases for having different registries at different levels. And yeah, we could definitely do that.
The other thing that I would say is, I find that the add event listener and the remove event listener is much more difficult than the like subscribe and return something to disconnect with.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe we could support both relatively easy, but I just find like it's, everybody who's writing custom events right now, what's much easier to do is you have your like subscribe and that returns the unsubscribe method versus what you have to do all the other time, which is like in add event listener, you take your original handler, but then you also have to store it somehow. Like you have the actual handler that you bind. So like this got add event listener. So maybe you wanted to actually listen to click because you're going to do a double click, but you have your actual like click handler. And then what the person is always going to pass that remove event listener is this handler, but you always need to get this back to unsubscribe. But this is much, much easier to do if you have access. You just have a closure that kind of keeps that value, and you just return.
Yeah.
Like that, and then we can, under the hood, map this handler to the thing that, so if remove event listener comes in, we can do this mapping. I would just say the only thing I would add to this, not to make it necessarily more, but I guess that's what I would do, is I just think this is such a common convenience that it might be worth having,
It's the observable APIs like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just find that so much easier for people to deal with.
Yeah, and it'll probably save us a lot of like memory problems too.
Yeah, all of the memory leaks that I fixed in the last 2 weeks are because of that.
Yeah, so maybe we should just do that. I only chose to do the add event listener and remove event for familiarity, but if we know a better way, we should just do the better way. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this API, you know, to do things better. So definitely, if you want to add that, I totally agree with that, because it'll just save us so much time.
Yeah.
To not let people shoot themselves in the foot with that.
Yeah, and then the nice thing is it kind of, what I like about that is this one function kind of is like, I mean, you could almost, this is a big part of, like if people wanted to mix this in to like the current way we do add event listener or something like that, we could make APIs for that. I don't know. It's a little bit more self-contained, because then all you in some ways need is this plus the event name you want to like, and that's all you need. Is like one function in the event name, and it kind of removes the remove event listener stuff.
Yeah.
Look into the custom elements has a registry as well that seems somewhat similar to that. You might look up what that API is.
All right.
There's some overlap. Not overlap, but very similar.
So who's gonna rewrite all of can or jQuery++ to use this? And then the really cool thing would be, I was thinking about this when you did it, is we could rewrite jQuery++ to use this, but then what we would have is a different registry that would be able to take these objects and register them with jQuery. So we could still provide backwards compatibility for everybody using jQuery++'s drag drop, but then you could just avoid it and use our stuff. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, we could. I'm not that familiar with jQuery++, but if you think it's achievable, then yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just a lot of events. Like some of them are destroyed as a remove event, but really the ones that I think a lot of our current projects still use are the drag drop. People and maybe hover, but at least these I think would be good for compatibility for people to help move them along.
All right, cool. Yeah, this has been a really productive discussion.
Yeah.
You say that like you're surprised.
Well, no, I'm just happy.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, okay, cool.
Cool. Anything else on this before we move on? Nope. Cool. Austin, do you want to talk about, hopefully everyone read through the CAN Global's issue thread already. Could you give us a quick summary of what the topic is, and then we can discuss? Or if there were specific things that you were looking for feedback on, we can discuss.
Right. Yeah, so basically me and Christopher, we're working on it, and where we're at now is we haven't gotten any feedback on it in, let's see here, 9 days. And so we're wondering kind of how we should proceed. It definitely, to me, doesn't feel like it's quite done, but I don't know, neither of us really know where to go from here. So that's what we're asking.
Okay. I know I only had like one super minor feedback and question about it, which was...
Do we want to go through what it does for people real quick?
Yeah, that could be good. Austin, could you share your screen and walk us through it a little bit?
Fine, I won't share mine.
All right, yeah. Austin, are you there? Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay. Hold on just a second. Okay, so you guys can hear me, right? Did I unmute myself?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So this kind of came up when I started moving can util to use the to remove can Ajax from can util, put in the deprecation notice, and then remove all of its dependencies as well, or move them to the external module. And then Justin mentioned that we kind of made a whole bunch of like micro packages, and he thinks there should kind of be one place for a lot of this stuff to live. So like the globals and the feature detection stuff. So he had us write up a little API for kind of an interface for all of that stuff.
Real quick, also to give a little bit more background for everybody. Already in can utils, there's globals for like the document, right? Instead of just writing document.getElement by ID, all of CanJS code does imports this can util document module and then calls the function that it returns to get the actual document. These things are all writable. And the reason is for all of this is so that we can say, hey, we've got a virtual document, for instance, and we want to run our tests with our virtual document so that all of CanJS use the virtual document instead of the actual document. So there's a whole bunch of different globals and kind of feature detection and things like that that are, it's very common, are all in can util to like look up, do you have a mutation observer? Okay, but maybe we want to run tests where we're sure there isn't a mutation observer. So this is why we need this ability to kind of like set the environment in some ways for CanJS and also be able to read it.
Cool. Thanks for that summary, Justin. So Austin, do you want to continue?
Yeah, sure. So right now, we initially tried using getters and setters, but then we found out that you couldn't have basically an event fired for any time you delete a key on an object. So we went back to using just little methods for get, set, and reset kind of thing. And then define is kind of like the initialize method. When you want to add a property and set its kind of default value of the app, you use define. And then if you want to overwrite that, you can use set. And if you reset, it'll go back to the initial value is kind of like the basic idea behind it. I'm not sure how specific you want me to get here. What information do you guys need exactly?
I looked through it. The only thing it seemed like it's just a map, really, right? Mostly.
Okay.
So
the only special feature seems to be like whether or not it should be cached. And I actually wasn't sure why they're separate define and set methods with just it seemed like just caching was the only argument that was different between the two.
Right. I think that is correct. I'm trying to remember. Christopher kind of knows more about that than me, I believe. Do we have room to bring Christopher in to the?
Just a quick comment, kind of like what we just talked about with the event stuff. It would be nice to make this be instantiable. At least in SSR, we do have a need for like having a bunch of globals. So it'd be good to be able to have one of these things that you can create and then like destroy later on or something.
Christopher just messaged me and he's confirming that trying to create the variable and set is to change the value later. But I just asked him if we can make that the same method. Because that's kind of what you're getting at, Jason, right? Is why is there two methods that do more or less the same thing?
Yeah, I just don't understand if there's a reason for that.
Wait, why there's a define and a set?
Yeah.
Yeah, why you can't just call set the first time to define it if it's not defined set when you define it.
Okay. So when you define it, it's like you're giving you're kind of defining it. You're defining it with like kind of a way to read to figure out what the default value is. You define with like a function typically, and that function will be read every time get is called. So it will be reevaluated forever, unless you want to set like a cache property. I'm actually not sure we need to be able to have, and maybe Christopher will explain why, because I've kind of forgotten this. I don't know why we need to be able to cache true option, because I would just assume if somebody really wanted to avoid calling a bunch of times, like is WebKit, what they would just do is read it once and then bind to when a set has been called so that they could then recall.
It was a minor addition. My thought there was if for something that's expensive, we can still make it lazy, but not do it multiple times, like the is WebKit, where you have to create a div and whatnot, just to give them the ability to not have to do that multiple times because the answer doesn't change. But it may never be needed, just how to leave it optional.
You could make it lazy. You could just do that yourself, right? Just provide a function, and then when that function is called, call globals.set with the actual value, so that next time it will pull from that.
When you use global.set, I don't want to say it's temporary.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant define. You can define more than once, right?
On the same key, no. You can only define one time. When you do a define, the function or the value you give it becomes that sort of permanent default. And then there's a reset, I think it's called, or something to that effect later, that removes whatever you've set, but restores that original value that you passed in to define. So it's kind of a fallback after everything else is gone.
I guess the reason why it kind of looks this way is the idea is basically most of the time you have your feature detection and you want that to run with whatever browser environment it's in. So you want like the function to run, or you want it to pick out whatever like the actual value should be for that environment. But occasionally you want to be able, often temporarily set the environment to something else so you can run a test and then be able to say, oh, now go back to whatever you were. So that's why it's like define, which is to set like, here's your kind of default browser specific environment. Then there's set to temporarily overwrite it, and there's reset to like set it back to whatever it was.
That makes a lot more sense to me, because I was also curious why reset wasn't just called delete. But now I understand that it's just for like, you can temporarily set it and change the value and then call reset and have it go back to whatever the originally defined value was. And that's why define is separate from set.
What if I call set in my code and then someone else calls set? When I call reset, it's going to reset back to me and not back to like the original value.
Yeah, there's no stack.
Reset always goes back to the original value.
The very top, the very first original value.
The one passed into define, correct.
But Matthew, you could implement a set on top of this at least, because what you could do is essentially, right as you're about to set, you could do a get, and then you could I guess you could make a stack on top of this if you really needed to. It's like push and pop on top of this API would be feasible, because you can always call set and you can always read the current thing on top. With that, that's all you need to implement stack if you really got to. So I guess the only thing is like Christopher, I don't know if I guess I would just need more like I would avoid the cached lazy property unless we know we really need it right now.
Okay.
Just I'd prefer not to like add APIs and things like that until we for sure need it. One other thing, there is an event system, and this is something that we all debated whether to add or not. The reason is for certain things, especially the DOM mutate in CanJS. CanUtil DOM mutate is what we use, and every part of CanJS should use if it's going to mutate the DOM in a way that's going to trigger off inserted and removed events in browsers that don't support inserted or removed events. And if you look at DOM mutate right now, it's like a pen child. It's a pen child will check the mutation if a mutation observers exist, and then do the normal append child, or the will do like the append child that like will fake simulate inserted or removed mutation observers. That's expensive, right? Because that means for every time we insert in browsers that do support mutation observers, they still have to have our append child be called, our get mutation observer check, and then the real append child. What events allow us to do is to basically rewrite our append child if someone's setting mutation observers exist or don't exist. And we'll just rewrite that function kind of statefully on DOM mutate back and forth if the browser environment changes.
So that's a cool little win.
Yeah, instead of 3 function calls, we'll be able to get down to 1. So if there's other things like this, I know there's a few other parts. Like I feel like Kevin has found that, like in CanStash or CanView target, like whether that are kind of expensive checks that we have to do to know if like clone nodes work, and we might be doing them a lot, or we thought about doing them a lot. This will make it so that we can like instead just get the value now, set up an event handler in case the environment changes to work.
Cool. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Nope. Okay. Matthew, did you want to bring up CanReflect readiness?
Yeah, I just noticed that it was like on 003, and I wasn't sure. It seemed like that's it's like a kind of a global thing, like Can said, and those kinds of things. So I didn't thought before it starts getting implemented everywhere that release I don't know, at least a 0.1. That way, at least the Simver range things work, or preferably just a 1.0.
Well, the path that we're going to take is will kind of have to be. It doesn't really. I guess it doesn't really matter what the version number as long as it's below 1.0 is, because what we're doing is making pre-releases of every kind of core module and whatnot that use CanReflect. And CanReflect's like, as we make changes to it, its patch or minor version will increment. And then once we're ready to say like, oh, we've got a release of CanJS for 3.0, it'll have to go 1.0 on CanReflect, and then we'll change all of those pre-releases to point at the 1.0 version.
So we're not going to release a CanDefine version. Like a non-pre-release.
There should not be a non-pre-release version of CanDefine that points at any. I'm getting very double negative. All pre-releases of CanDefine will point at like below 1.0 versions of CanReflect, and then the CanDefine release, the patch release, or actually probably a minor release of CanDefine. Maybe no, it'll be a minor release. minor release of CanDefine will point at the CanReflect 1.0 or 1.0.
Cool, that's fine. Just want to make sure.
Cool. Let's move on. Kevin, you posted about type checking JS files with TypeScript. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so probably quickly. So TypeScript released a new version that can type check JavaScript files now with using comments. So I was just curious if there's any interest in doing any type checking in either CanJS or Steel, or I think there's definitely some benefits that we could get. I don't know, it would be a lot of work probably to get those benefits. I don't know if they really outweigh, but I wanted to kind of see if anyone else thinks that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I do. I haven't played with TypeScript or Flow or any of the other type utilities. But I think it would be good to experiment with one of those in one of our smaller packages and see how we can improve docs and the code and working with those communities in the long run.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I want to talk about is, do we want to try to make like our bitdocs type params compatible with something like TypeScript or Flow, so that if people wanted to, we would have those in place?
We've talked about this before.
Yeah, we did, but it wasn't possible with TypeScript until now. So
how like compatible are these different languages? Like is Flow, is there like a subset of Flow that looks just like TypeScript, or is it just?
I don't know.
I feel
no,
like
I don't think they're compatible at all.
So, and I don't
TypeScript
know how
popular, it seems like.
Sorry, say that again, Matthew.
I said, but the TypeScript is like pretty far ahead as the popularity, it seems like to me.
Yeah, I know in TypeScript you can create typings packages. Is the same thing applicable to Flow? Do they have the same idea where you can get the types for a package? If that makes sense. Am I making sense?
I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I don't know.
I feel like it doesn't.
I don't think I've seen that.
From what I've heard, like those typings are pretty hit and miss in TypeScript anyway. They end up being out of date real fast.
I would say I'd be very interested if their tooling is good. Like if, let's say, bitdocs is kind of under a lot of flux right now anyways. If they gave us really good tooling to say, hey, this is point this at a JavaScript file, and it will just like give you the whole type definition kind of object from it, then we could just take that and be like, oh, here it is, bitdocs doc object, right? Like here's all that type definition stuff, and like we could sort that and then eliminate a lot of code in bitdocs. That would be a lot of that. To me, that would be a very good reason to dip our toes into those waters. But I feel like that's like an experiment someone has to do.
The Flow allows you to do it, allows you to use comments to do the type stuff, but I don't believe it's like, I don't think it's JS doc kind of comments. I think it's a different format.
It doesn't, yeah, I don't even care too much about that, because we could just have like, well, we could have compatibility where we just kind of, as long as we get some kind of object representation of what like the type definitions are, to say like, oh, here's a function, here's what the argument types are, like that's, it's easy to map that to what bitdocs already expects, or to map bitdocs to that. So
do you mean the types that it's inferring, or if you actually specify the types?
Both. I mean, if it can, does it, I don't know how, if it's a type inferencing specification, if it can actually do that super well. You can. Are you nodding yes?
It's good. I mean, it's pretty good if you're using TypeScript. I don't know if it does type inference if you are doing it on JavaScript files, because I don't think that's what they're looking for. But
yeah, I think this is just an experiment someone needs to do to just see like what it would be like to incorporate that in kind of our process. But yeah, I agree with Chasen. The way to do it would be like just start on something. The way to do it would probably be like, well, can Ajax or something. One of these like things that we're kind of saying, hey, community, this is a small little thing that might be useful on your own, can param or something. And now it's got TypeScript support. And then they maybe get like, we already built that can bitdocs README generator, right? Get that up to speed. But again, this is stuff that's like really nice to have, and there's a lot of other priorities. It's just,
yeah.
Yeah, but this could, if someone's interested in like experimenting with this next week, then that would be pretty cool. Maybe.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Anything else on this topic before we move on? Nope. Okay. Nils, do you want to bring up next case and can stash bindings?
Sure. This is something that Justin and Matthew and I had a discussion about earlier in the week. It came up when I was looking into event binding upgrades in a client application. We've changed the way that we do conversions to the left-hand side of an event binding specifically. The previous convention was that the kebab case on the left-hand side would be kind of transformed into camel case. But right now, we're not doing that conversion for event bindings. So your event name would be on the left-hand side. If you use kebab case, it would become a camel case version of that event name.
Sorry to interrupt you, Nels. Is there an issue open for this, or something that us visual learners can see as you're explaining this?
Unfortunately not. No, this discussion happened in the open source thread. I think there's an issue for the event.
I'll type it while he's talking. But
yeah, thank you.
Sorry, there's some events.
Cool, thanks.
Equals do something.
Right. So previously in Can 2.3, that would become some event camel case, and right now we're maintaining the kebab case. So it's adding a listener for kebab case version of some event. So
that should be some event in parentheses, right? Not brackets.
That's right. Yeah, the binding up there is not what I use, is it? Right. And yeah, it'd be a lowercase e. Well, that's 3 yeah. So this is what I was running into, and there was a discussion on what is the convention for event names when you have a custom event that you're using in the DOM. And the W3C spec actually, their example uses a camel case event name, but you could use any casing. So really, we should be able to support whatever case you want on the left-hand side of that binding. You should be able to use kebab case, camel case, and expect that not to be changed by our binding. So there was talk about using, so the reason that we do this conversion is because HTML does not support, as I'm sure you guys know, mixed case in your attribute names. So when this is actually written out to the tag and can stash bindings runs on that tag attribute, the attribute name can't have mixed cases. So we do a conversion to kebab case, and then we do a conversion, at least in 2.3, we did a conversion back to camel case. So the discussion was, should we do some sort of escaping of capital characters? So when you write a stash file, you can use mixed case on the left-hand side of your event binding. And then when it's written out to the DOM, it'll do some escaping of that mixed case that you've used in the attribute name. And then when Stings reads that attribute name, it'll decode the escaping that's been done by the can stash parser. And what should that escaping look like? This was for the discussion.
It's kind of a hard one.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can't have mixed case, right? It's just that HTML is case insensitive, so we wouldn't be able to tell the difference if you had the same event name with different cases.
Like if you go to an element that you've used mixed case attribute names on, and you do element.attributes, and you look at that map that's returned, that object that's returned, it'll be using lowercase for everything. So it will internally smash everything.
The casing is lost by the time it gets, or after it gets to HTML.
Right.
That information is lost.
Okay.
And that's something that we can detect, right? Or that's something that we'd be able to pick up?
It's not something we can really detect. I mean, we can do it by looking at our stash file and then looking at what was rendered out. But if
What are we?
Dynamically, right? So we would have to do some sort of escaping on the stash parsing and rendering side, and then we could judge from that escaping whether or not mixed case was used.
Could we just store this info? Could Stash creates these nodes? Can it like store the actual event name as like DOM data or something like that?
That's another good idea. Yeah.
Or I wonder.
No, because not if we want to support stuff like this. Well, very much harder maybe if you wanted to support this kind of stuff, like dynamic. some of the ideas that were originally posed fall down because like we allow, and we even allow right now someone to like kind of dynamically add attributes, and we listen to attributes events and we pick up on that, and like suddenly this is just created and inserted into the DOM. Like we're just going to do I'm going to create the attribute, but then through the attributes event handler, we listen to an attribute get created, we see if they match this, and then we kind of reset everything up. So that if we want to support that, it gets a little trickier. I actually think that this is a really good solution. The biggest reason is because something we've kind of already identified is, hey, these kind of elements really aren't natively supported, or these kind of characters, it doesn't like, it complains if you try to set an actual attribute like this. So some kind of encoding where anything custom is going to be encoded anyways would help avoid that. And then can-stash bindings could just either deal with those attributes themselves or just undo the encoding and then go on from there. It's kind of, if we did set up this kind of encoding and decoding, it kind of fixes problems that we have already.
Right. So this is most applicable to the events binding because it's something that like we'll need to support certain events, or if you have some third party.
No, it's applicable. I mean, in reality, it's applicable to other things because people all the time write, thing bar, right? Now we throw warnings currently, and we also will even convert it to bar for them if they try this stuff. But this kind of thing isn't even possible if you had like a class name, right?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I think this works, but this is just super weird. I think it makes sense that, people just want to write this. I think it's fine to like make that work.
Yeah, I think that this would be an advantage for all of our bindings.
Yeah. To me, the question is just like what can we do in terms of like encoding that's not super onerous, so people would be able to look at this and be like, oh yeah, I get what that means.
Maybe just like a Unicode arrow or something.
I was gonna say, you took it out of my brain.
If that is a valid value, I think that's possible.
If we have a Unicode encoded page, so we do that.
Now, do different encodings, are they gonna like complain at us if we embed a Unicode and someone loads it with some other type of code, our source files?
Yeah.
Is that do we kind of have to stick to ASCII because of that? So it's the same everywhere?
Yeah, it's too bad we're already using the character. We're already using the hat. So.
I mean, what I would probably do is just encode it like with slashes and say like, there's just a single byte means what it's going to do after that, and this just means like, we're going to capitalize the next letter, and there could be a whole different we would just start allowing like any kind of thing. So if you just saw slashes, we're going to look up this command, and that command is going to do whatever it should do. It's probably the way that I would do it. I don't know. It's maybe not as readable, but I think.
Yeah, I think slashes are a good idea too.
Encoding, people understand that's it. Yeah, they already understand that's an encoding.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a topic. I just wanted to put it past the team before I open an issue specifically to tackle this and discuss what encoding we should do. But it seems like there's a consensus.
Yeah, I would go ahead and open the issue.
Okay.
I would open issue with the HTML, and so HTML6 is case sensitive. That would be nice.
Oh, hey, XHTML did it right. XHTML was always case sensitive in this case.
Yeah, good for them.
Okay, I think that is it for topics, and we're at about an hour. Does anyone else have anything before we go? Nope. Okay, cool. Well, thanks guys for joining. Everyone who's watching on the live stream, thanks for watching, or on YouTube afterwards. And see you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Yep.